Why did Jesus pray to God if he is God? When we reflect on the life of Jesus Christ, one of the most intriguing aspects is the way he prayed to God, despite being God himself. The Bible presents Jesus as the Son of God, fully divine and fully human, and yet throughout the Gospels we see him praying frequently. This leads to an essential theological question. Why did Jesus, who is God, need to pray to God the Father? Was it a matter of necessity? Or was there a deeper spiritual and relational purpose behind it? To answer this question fully, we must first understand the nature of Jesus Christ, both in his divinity and humanity. The theological concept of the Incarnation teaches us that Jesus is both God and man. This dual nature is central to the Christian faith and plays a crucial role in explaining why Jesus prayed. The act of prayer was not an expression of need or weakness, but rather a profound act of communion, obedience, and submission to the will of the Father. Through his prayers, Jesus demonstrated his dependence on the Father, his intimate relationship with him, and his role as the perfect model for his followers. The prayers of Jesus reveal deep spiritual truths that can help us understand more clearly who he is, what he came to do, and how we, as believers, are to relate to God. Understanding Jesus' prayers involves looking at several key factors. These include his purpose in coming to earth, his relationship with the Father and the Holy Spirit, the model he set for his followers, and the communication of his divine will. The act of praying was not a contradiction of his divinity, but rather a demonstration of his submission to the will of the Father and his role as the mediator between God and humanity. Jesus' prayers remind us that true divinity and true humanity are not opposites, but complementary realities that together make the salvation of humanity possible. At the heart of Jesus' ministry was the call to restore the broken relationship between humanity and God. Sin had separated man from God, and the only way to bridge that gap was for Jesus, the Son of God, to come into the world, take on human nature, and fulfill the will of the Father. Jesus' prayers were a crucial part of this mission. From the moment of his birth to his final words on the cross, Jesus' life was marked by prayer. As a child, he was dedicated to the Father through prayer and worship. As he grew in wisdom and stature, he sought times of solitude to pray and commune with the Father. In his public ministry, Jesus prayed to the Father on behalf of others, healing the sick, raising the dead, and teaching his disciples how to pray. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed fervently, expressing his human anguish, but ultimately submitting to the will of the Father. Jesus' prayers were not just words spoken out of obligation. They were moments of deep intimacy, demonstrating his dependence on the Father. Prayer was not a ritualistic act for Jesus, but a way of living in constant communion with God. His prayers were expressions of trust, surrender, and devotion. They were also an essential part of his mission to reveal the heart of the Father to the world. One of the most powerful moments in the Gospels occurs in the Garden of Gethsemane, just before Jesus' arrest and crucifixion. Jesus prayed earnestly, asking the Father if it was possible to take the cup of suffering away from him, but then submitting to the Father's will, saying, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. In this moment, Jesus demonstrated the perfect model of submission and obedience to the will of God, even when it meant facing unimaginable suffering. In this prayer, we see both the human and divine natures of Jesus in harmony. His humanity was fully expressed in his anguish, but his divinity was equally expressed in his submission to the Father's will. Jesus did not pray out of weakness, but out of a desire to perfectly align himself with the divine plan of redemption. He was the perfect Son, who, in his love for the Father and for humanity, was willing to lay down his life. This prayer in Gethsemane also serves as a model for believers. Jesus shows us that it is okay to express our struggles and pain to God, but he also teaches us the importance of yielding to God's will. In the face of suffering and uncertainty, Jesus' prayer reveals the key to living out our faith, trusting in God's plan and submitting ourselves to his will. Another important aspect of Jesus' prayers was his desire for unity with the Father. Jesus' frequent prayers highlight his relationship with God as a relationship of love, trust, and obedience. In John 17, we find what is often referred to as the high priestly prayer, where Jesus prays for himself, his disciples, and all future believers. In this prayer, Jesus expresses his desire for his followers to be one with him and the Father, just as he is one with the Father. He prays, "Father, that they may be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you." John 17:21. This prayer reveals the deep relational aspect of Jesus' divinity and humanity. Jesus is not praying merely for his disciples. He is praying for the unity of all believers with God. The unity that Jesus prays for is not a shallow, surface-level unity, but a deep spiritual communion that reflects the relationship between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus, as the second person of the Trinity, is intimately connected to the Father, and he desires that his followers share in that same connection. His prayer reveals the heart of the Trinity and the desire for all believers to experience the same intimate relationship with God that Jesus, the Son, enjoys with the Father. Jesus' prayers also serve as a model for how we should approach God in prayer. He teaches us that prayer is not just about asking for things, but about building a relationship with God. Prayer is about seeking God's will, expressing our dependence on him, and aligning our hearts with his. Jesus prayed to the Father not because he needed to, but because prayer was an essential part of his relationship with God. It was through prayer that he stayed connected to the Father and fulfilled his mission. For Christians, the example of Jesus' prayers is a powerful reminder of the importance of prayer in our own lives. Jesus prayed in times of joy and sorrow, in times of solitude, and in the midst of his ministry. He prayed for others, for his disciples, and for himself. His prayers were not just an example to follow, but a means of inviting us into a deeper relationship with God. Through his prayers, Jesus shows us that prayer is not just a religious duty, but a vital part of our spiritual lives. In the context of Jesus' life, his prayers also reveal his deep commitment to the mission of salvation. Jesus knew that he had come to earth to die for the sins of the world, and he understood that his relationship with the Father was essential to fulfilling that mission. His prayers were not just about personal devotion, but about accomplishing the will of the Father. Jesus' prayer life was marked by a profound sense of mission and purpose. One of the most significant prayers Jesus prayed was on the cross when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. In this moment, Jesus expressed the depth of his suffering, both physically and spiritually. He experienced the weight of sin and the separation from the Father that sin causes. Yet even in his moment of deepest anguish, Jesus prayed to God. His prayer on the cross is a powerful reminder of the cost of our salvation and the extent to which Jesus was willing to go to redeem humanity. Theologically, this moment on the cross is significant because it shows that Jesus, though fully divine, experienced the full weight of human suffering. His prayer demonstrates his deep identification with humanity and his willingness to take on the consequences of sin. This moment also reveals the reality of the Trinity. Jesus, the Son, experienced separation from the Father, yet he continued to call out to God. His prayer on the cross was an expression of both his humanity and his divinity, and it serves as a profound testament to his sacrifice for the world. In conclusion, the question of why Jesus prayed to God, if he is God, is a profound one, and the answer lies in the nature of Jesus' person and mission. Jesus prayed because he was both fully divine and fully human, and his prayers were a vital part of his relationship with the Father. Through his prayers, Jesus revealed his deep dependence on the Father, his obedience to God's will, and his desire for unity with believers. His prayer life is not only a model for us to follow, but also a way for us to enter into a deeper relationship with God. Through prayer, we are invited to join in the communion that Jesus, as the Son of God, experienced with the Father, and we are reminded of the great sacrifice Jesus made for our salvation. In every prayer Jesus offered, he was fulfilling the will of the Father and showing us the way to live a life of obedience, trust, and love.